Here we go.
Hey everyone, welcome to Checkpoint Achieved, episode 19. I'm Bryden, Keks, and I've got me here today, Gage, Paul.
Hi.
And we're going to talk about video games as we normally do. We'll start off with the news, though. And this week, has had a good amount of stories come out, but they haven't really been that great overall, except for the one that I'm getting super jazzed about. And we covered this story maybe a month ago or so. I was kind of downtrodden. I'm like, this game sounds really good. And I'm talking about Horror of the Orient. It's a game by Team Bondi, the guys who made LA Noire. I love those guys.
Yeah.
And they, essentially, the game was going to be cancelled. It wasn't going to happen. Well, things have changed, and essentially the Australian government is giving them a $200,000 grant, I guess, to get them kickstarted on making this game. And what it's going to be, essentially, is they still need to get investors, and they still need more support to get this game going, but they're actually getting kind of a little bit of push to get themselves moving along with that. And kind of an update on what this game is, essentially, is it's based in the 1930s, roughly, in Shanghai, kind of playing on, I think you're an American cop that comes over, and it's really, you're in this area of town, or Shanghai in general, that is just very decadent. It's a time where there's extreme wealth being really spread around, but at the same time, too, there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of gang violence, and it's supposed to really depict this type of video game that we've never really seen yet. That's what got me really excited. I just want to see different time, pieces and stuff like that.
This team, they do a bunch of games you haven't really seen before. Like LA Noire, that was a really... It was like kind of like an adventure game, but it did a really cool look in it. Like you're a cop and you're looking for all these clues, and it was really interesting.
I agree in a lot of ways that they didn't execute maybe the best way that they could have, but it was completely different than what we had normally seen, and that whole kind of aspect of what LA Noire was really made me like that game. It made it one of my favorite games that I played on, I guess, the 360 at the time. It was a really cool experience. Maybe I've kind of cooled down on it a bit since then, but these guys, I still have a lot of faith that they could actually make something really interesting. And they had lots of issues with the actual development of LA Noire 2, where they were overworked. Lots of bad stuff was going on at Team Bondi. The name of that company has kind of been a little bit soiled because of that, but the thing to say regarding that, though, is that I don't know the exact story for all of it, but I guess the bad roots that were in the company have been, pulled out, and this is, the team that is still there, that has a little bit more freedom and is living normal lives rather than being sweatshopped into making a game like LA Noire. So I'm really excited to see if this game actually is able to get its legs and move somewhere, because, it sounds like a really neat timeline. And one thing that I kind of got, or I'm kind of coming to terms to, is the reason why I really have enjoyed the Assassin's Creed series. Every place that Assassin's Creed has gone to has been essentially a city and a whole timeline of conflict that hasn't been really touched on by video games. And I've now kind of dulled myself down to the experience, but the idea of going to the Crusades previously and to Italy after that, it's these places that I thought would be really cool to experience.
They do have really interesting timelines, and I am excited to see what they see next, but like you said, I've kind of like... It's a year after year thing where I'm kind of getting bored of the franchise. It's kind of becoming the Call of Duty yearly release of an action-adventure game.
I think the good thing for them, like Call of Duty, is that they're having these teams that are working on it for a couple of years, but the problem that they're having is that there's no time as the consumer to cool down on it. Yeah. I love as a video game player to see a new trailer or reveal trailer for a game and be like, holy shit, like I got super excited for Kingdom Hearts 3. I don't know if that's actually merited because I played that game so long ago, I can't remember the experience, but deep down in my brain, there's something that told me Kingdom Hearts 3 equals Scream. You know what I mean? And it's rarely, like I don't want them to wait that long for video games, but I think that's something that's actually been lost this generation in video games, where people are getting burnt out on video games rather than the opposite. I think a lot of times in the past, it was very much like these people, or by these people I mean us and other video gamers, would want to play a video game, right? Would get very excited for it, but then it would just be like this long cycle of waiting for someone to come out, and then holy shit, the next Final Fantasy's coming out, or I don't know what another good example.
GTA.
Yeah, I mean, like, they actually still do that pretty good. I mean, GTA, it was either 2007 or 2008. It's been like, I think 2008. It's been 5 years.
Yeah, this console's been out for almost 10 years.
Yeah, we're at the point now where 360 came out in 2005, and, you know, that's 8 years ago now, which is such a freaking long time that we've actually had the possibility for, like, a game like Grand Theft Auto to be made twice in this generation, which still leads to complete improvement. Like, if you look at Grand Theft Auto 4 and compare it to Grand Theft Auto 5, there is miles and miles of difference in quality between these two games.
Yeah, we were watching a video today on GTA 4, and you pointed out this game doesn't look that amazing anymore.
I've been playing, actually, GTA, I guess on and off on the multiplayer a little bit, GTA 4 that is, and it's not, like, I can play it, it's fine, but there's massive bloom going on to make the game look like, look at the skyline, and it's like, in video games nowadays, it's just like, yep, there are buildings over there. It's not... I remember playing the game and be like, holy crap, there's another island over there, and I can see it. And what it really was is them just blooming it, making it all, like, kind of, you know, distorted, and then when you got closer, it's like, oh, there it is, and it just makes this really, like, it's almost like pollution, it looks like, in a weird way. So, I mean, I don't know, I'm of the mind where, like, I absolutely love the Uncharted series this generation, and I'm scared almost for Uncharted 4. I should be excited for Uncharted 4, but it's gone to that point where I feel like they really need to take a hiatus on it. Like, people want Jak 4 now. Like, that's a game that people were excited for. Funny story of that was that the game got canceled, and they decided to make The Last of Us instead.
Really?
So that was the story on that, is that they were making Jak 4, they couldn't come up with a proper story that really feel like they could continue on what Jak is, and instead of that, they started a new IP, which was The Last of Us. So that
turned out good for them.
Yeah, I guess that was a good thing. So that said, I mean, it's one of those things where we get those experiences now where we enjoy a new game, and I enjoy new environments in that type of way. I don't know if, like, maybe they'll blow me away. You know what I mean? Like, in that case, if it's a next-gen Uncharted, it could look really awesome, and I'd be like, yep, back on board. But there's so much saturation, and I think Call of Duty's really kind of screwed us over in that way, where our mindset was, sweet, this game, Call of Duty, is awesome. And then we're like, holy crap, they're coming out every year. But the other team that's making it every year are...
Isn't as good.
Yeah, so it's like, maybe I can skip that one if I want, but if I really want Call of Duty, I can buy it every year. And then they started just kind of melding together where it's like you don't know what's better and worse, right? And we're at the point now when it comes to that type of stuff where it's like, for me, it's almost a complete write-off. Like, it used to be in that type of way where it's like, oh, I know these two teams. That's the year I don't buy the video game. That's the year that I do buy the video game. Like, I bought World at War, but I didn't enjoy it as much. I know that's contradictory to what other people say, because a lot of people liked World at War. But the thing is, like, that was kind of the thing where I'm waiting for Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah.
And that, as I've already discussed on the show, that was the last Modern Warfare I've ever played, or the last Call of Duty game since I played all the ones up to that point. That was the one that I stopped at. But it's that kind of mentality where we've seen so much of that this generation, where it's now gone to the point where games are now coming out so often and so fast and furious when it comes to that stuff, you really have to kind of pick your battles when you're choosing the games you want to play. And I think even the scarier part to think about is games like The Last of Us, they are different, and Naughty Dog did a great job in making that game feel different than Uncharted, but there's other studios like Ubisoft where you're going to really get that melding pot effect. And same thing for EA. Everybody that, you know, under the EA banner is using Frostbite engine. And I'm scared for, like, what that's going to mean for video games, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of all blended together to make one.
Yeah, because, like, Need for Speed Rivals looks pretty cool. We're going to talk a little bit about some games we actually liked from E3 that we haven't had the opportunity to talk about yet on our kind of topic of the week, if you want to call it that. But before all that, too, it's that thing where it's like, okay, they're making a racing game of Frostbite, they're making a first-person shooter of Frostbite, they're making an RPG with Frostbite. Because those games are going to be so different than what, you know, they're not bleeding into each other's genres. That's totally fine. But you look at Ubisoft and you got games like Far Cry 3, Assassin's Creed 3, and now Watch Dogs. When I look at Watch Dogs is essentially what I want Assassin's Creed to become down the line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a weird, like,
future.
Yeah, it's a weird amalgamation of, like, this game looks different and it looks cool, but I can't help but feel deja vu when I watch videos for that game.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very excited to see what that experience is going to be, because I think that's going to be the first real time that we have that too, where it's like, I think Splinter Cell is going to feel different than Assassin's Creed and stuff like that. I don't think that game's that close to it, but Watch Dogs
is, when you look at that, when he's walking, it could easily, if you reskin that, be an Assassin's Creed game.
Maybe it's the coat too, because there's just like the long coat and it's kind of dragging a little bit. I'm like, this is very close to Assassin's Creed, but it's that weird feeling that I'm very excited to experience, because that game looks really good. And we talked about best games of the year. That one's on the category for being in that talk, being in that argument. Is it going to be a write-off? Because it might just feel like I've played this game before. I really hope it isn't, but I mean, I don't... Actually, let me say it. I don't think it's going to be, but it'll be very interesting if it turns out to be. And that could be the conversation, too, that we might have. And I'm interested to see what other people say about this, too. When we start seeing reviews come in, I'm very excited to see if this is going to be like, yeah, this game was really cool, but I felt like I had already played it before.
It's Assassin's Creed in the future.
So EA, I think they're doing it right when it comes to that, because yes, the games are going to look similar, but they're using them in completely different environments. Like an RPG is not going to look like
Need for Speed.
Yeah, and it's not going to look like Battlefield either. Like Dragon Age is going to look like Dragon Age with this engine that maybe looks a little bit like Battlefield. But I'm worried when it comes to when you have... If they start a Prince of Persia game, that's going to be, I think, all right, because that's a different world. But the idea that, like, I don't know, Assassin's Creed just kind of feels too close to Watch Dogs, and then these games start going together, and you're like, this feels too close. Like the idea of, you know how you climb up and then you have your viewpoint in Assassin's Creed, right? And how, like in Far Cry 3, there was these watchtowers you could climb up. Yes, different, but same.
That's what the first thing I thought of when I climbed up those towers. I was like, this is like those lookout points in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, and then there's actual areas in Watch Dogs where it's the CTOS are controlling this area, and you have to break in, and you have to kind of liberate the area to make sure that you're now free to walk around in that zone. So there's actual zones where it's like, this is the baddie zone, just like you had like the areas where you'd have to take out the... I don't know what it was called, like essentially the boss in like the Assassin's Creed area where there was like
Garrisons?
Yeah, the garrisons is what it was called, and you'd have to take that out, and then once you did, that area was safe, or relatively safe. And it's the same type of idea, which is just, I don't know, it is different. It's a different experience, but it's bleeding together in weird ways that make me feel a little uncomfortable when it comes to all that. Moving on from that, before E3, Microsoft talked about the fact that they've got 15 exclusives coming out for the Xbox One in the first year.
Which is a fair amount.
Yeah, it's a pretty big, large number. We don't know how many of those games are going to be, you know, smaller games or whatever, but that's still, you know, you're going to have, like we've seen already, some big AAA exclusives coming out for the Xbox One. Yeah, and it's one of those things, too, that I was interested because I knew Sony had so many studios in their kind of just barn where they can really create a lot of games if they want to. I was interested to kind of see the rebuttal from them. And this week they came out and said that we're going to have 20 exclusives, 12 new franchises coming to the PlayStation 4 in the first year. So
that's a lot.
Yeah, they've come back and said, hey, so yeah, they're doing this. We're going to have 5 more than them, and also said that they've got currently 30 exclusives in development right now on top of that too.
Wow.
So yeah, it was crazy hearing this story, and again, I want to see lots of these games and get excited for them, but I'm not, like, this is just one of those things that's like the label that people read and they're like, oh, Sony's got more, I'm going to buy that system. It doesn't really mean that much. It just is like that easy kind of meet to the crowd so they can get excited about something along those lines. But, I mean, that's one of those things that I am really excited for from these consoles. And we talked a little bit about this too, that I don't know if I like exclusives, but it gets things to an interesting point.
It does. This console generation, this kind of console fight that's going on right now is really interesting with all the stabs that are being taken at each other.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's weird because at the beginning of last generation, there were so many exclusives out there. It made me buy both consoles eventually because I was like, I have to have that game. No, can't do that. And then what we started to see later on in the generation is those exclusives that we always knew to be on these consoles going, well, we're multi-platform now. Like the idea of a Metal Gear Solid game coming out and it being now a multi-platform title was, holy crap. A Final Fantasy game being on Xbox 360 blew people's minds. It was nuts in both those cases. Now we're going back. Like, it felt like these were dying. I heard this story so much that the console exclusive is dead. We're not going to see this anymore. And we're just right back at the beginning again.
So many exclusives coming out.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what these are.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I think Sony has 14 studios that are under their belt, and a lot of these studios, like Naughty Dog, have 2 studios working. Studio Japan, I believe, has 3. They got Rain. Team Ico, obviously, making The Last Guardian right now. No clue where that's at. But then also the team that's making Knack. So those are 3 games that they're currently working on, and obviously, you know, some of those games, Rain is a game that's going to come out for the PS3. That's already on its way. We already know about Knack, and we kind of know what's going on with The Last Guardian, but not really. That game is the game that I'm super hoping that we'll see at the Tokyo Game Show later on this year. I just want to see that game alive again. That'll be awesome if that game actually still exists. Cause, I mean, like, it's gone through so much crap, but... Man.
I heard about that game, like, when I first heard about that game, that was, like, more than... That was, like, when I was playing Black Ops 1, I think.
Yeah, well, I think that game first got announced in 2008.
Yeah.
Because Shadow of the Colossus came out in 2005, I believe, and then they took, like, a year off, or you're kind of moving, and then they started making it in 2006, 2007, announced it then, and then, you know, things just been kind of, it's coming soon, it's around the corner. So there's studios like that. We can assume that, you know, Last of Us just came out. That studio is now in, you know, post-production, going to be making the story DLC and stuff like that. Other Naughty Dog studio that made the Uncharted 3 game. That was the other story I actually want to go back to that, is that Uncharted 2, that studio was the studio that made The Last of Us, and Uncharted 3 is the other studio. So that's another kind of interesting story there, because I know a lot of people like Uncharted 2 more than Uncharted 3, and some people like Uncharted 3 more. I'm in the Uncharted 2 bandwagon, so it's kind of actually interesting to hear. That was another thing I kind of picked up in the past week or so, that the Uncharted 2 team, the team that made my favorite Uncharted game,
made Last of Us.
Yes, and now I'm excited to see what that means for what this next game from the other Uncharted team is going to be like. So, yeah, that's an idea of what they're doing. But then there's a lot of other studios. We can go over Sucker Punch and know that they're making, obviously, the next Infamous game. But then there's teams like Sony Bend that we don't know what they're doing. Santa Monica, we don't know what they're doing. Santa Monica has multiple studios as well that we don't know what they're doing. And I'm not going to go over every single game because, number one, I can't remember every single game studio that's owned by Sony right now. But still, at the same time, there's a lot of just kind of like, I don't know what's going on over there. And it's going to be really cool. Same thing with Xbox One, to start seeing what these games are. Yeah. And the one thing that I thought was more interesting from all this is that Xbox One, when it came to their E3 conference, really put all the cards on the table, or at least looked like they put a lot of their cards on the table. You know, they showed off like this 25-second teaser for Black Tusk. No one knows what the game is, but they're really pushing it. It's like
there was a Halo 5 trailer.
Yeah, like these games are years away probably, or at least, 2 years away, and they're still trying to make sure that we know what they are. Whereas Sony just came out and showed off the same stuff that they already kind of showed off. And they showed off the Order 1886, which could be a whiles away. But there's also a bunch of other studios that they've yet to say anything about. And they didn't go teaser, this studio's doing this and this studio's doing that. They just kind of went,
we got stuff.
Yeah, we got stuff. They'll come out with things later. And that to me
is Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah. That game's a multi-platform game. So that's obviously one thing that was another interesting story, because obviously people will assume Kingdom Hearts might have been a PlayStation exclusive. Turns out it wasn't. But at the same time, too, it kind of lends back into the idea where Sony's got so much going on. We don't know the half of it, and that makes me excited. I'd rather be slowly fed these games instead of just like, I don't know, maybe you're different in this kind of feeling, but I get kind of cold on games that they've been in the limelight for 3 years. Like, you know what I mean?
It depends. So there's certain games where I'm going to be excited about it. Like, I've heard about The Last of Us for a while now.
Yeah.
And just keeping myself kind of restricted on what I saw of that game made me excited when it got close to coming out. Watch Dogs, I've been on top of like every trailer that's come out pretty much, and I'm still really excited for that game. So I can kind of go either way, if they give me all the games at once, or if they like slowly
But the thing I want to kind of touch back to that is Watch Dogs officially was announced a year ago.
Yeah.
And The Last of Us was announced the VGAs of 2011, I believe. So it was about a year and a half cycle till the game actually came out. And those aren't very big cycles. Like announcing a game and then, Watch Dogs is going to be a year and a half too until it comes out. Yeah. So June and then it comes out in November. Same thing as The Last of Us. I think that's the best cycle to have. You announce a game, 16 months away, get excited for it, watch what they're going to do following that up. What I'm trying to say is, like, games that are announced and they don't come out for 3 years, that's when it's like, I know that if it's a big game, I'm going to care about it all the way to the end, but there's some other times where it's like, it almost might have been better if Black Tusk did not show something off, and then people just knew, what's Black Tusk doing? You know what I mean? Instead of this...
Black Tusk.
Yeah. It was just, boom. They're doing something.
We're a company.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's my personal kind of taste on all that stuff. I like to be told something when it's not miles away. It's like the Last Guardian syndrome. That wasn't on purpose. But the idea of that game obviously being redone in some way, and that's what's taken it so long. They've run into a whole shitload of issues, probably decided to up-res it to a PS4 game, change it that way too. That's why we've seen it take so long. But, yeah.
Yeah, another game I thought of was BioShock Infinite.
It took a while. I think that one went back and forth between caring and not caring. Like, I was excited for that initially, and then just slipped out of my mind because they weren't pushing the trailers. Like, that isn't bad, but there's some times where I feel like maybe it isn't as special of a game, and they just keep feeding you stuff. By the time the game comes out, you're like... It's like that movie that you want to go see, and they show 4 trailers for it. By the time you really shouldn't watch any of those trailers, but if you're really excited, you might watch all those trailers, and you're like, I kind of know the plot to this movie. And it's not the same way for video games. It's like I kind of have this expectation of what this video game is going to be.
Yeah.
So sometimes that lends the negative. But going back to, the fact that 20 exclusives are coming out, and 12 of them are new franchises, that's actually the best part about it. The fact that 12 of them are going to be new franchises. Because The Last of Us and how The Order 1886 looks and how we've seen some really awesome ideas from the Xbox One unveil, I'm just excited to see what these teams can do that's outside. And like my biggest thing, I think this is actually really funny. I almost wish we live streamed our impressions when we did the E3 PlayStation event, because we're all here, we're talking, we could have done some weird live stream, we could hear our reactions while we're watching the video. But the really funny part for me was when Sony Santa Monica's actual label came up when they're showing off Ready at Dawn's game. I didn't put the piece together right away. I thought it was a new Sony Santa Monica game. And I was just sitting here, please don't be God of War.
God of War.
Yeah,
don't be God of War.
I was saying that. I was just fingers crossed, like, please don't be this game. And then Ready at Dawn, I'm like, oh, okay, this is completely different. And then, holy shit, this is a PS4 game from Ready at Dawn. That was really cool seeing that. But at the same time, that is my biggest thing. I'm super into Uncharted. I think I could take another Uncharted game. I think that would be pretty cool, next-gen Uncharted. If that game's coming out a year from now, I think that's... that'll be 3 years since Uncharted 3 came out.
Yeah. That's
a good amount of time for that game. But I'd be really cool if they did a new IP or went back to Jack. That would be really weird, but kind of maybe cool. But then going to Sony Santa Monica, that is my biggest... Like, that is the team that I'm just like...
Don't be God of War.
If they make a game, they have so much potential. That's how I feel. They have a shit ton of potential, and if they make a game that isn't God of War, I think we'll be blown away. I think that they are the second best studio. Sucker Punch and Infamous is kind of like fighting between them, but I feel like the original God of War games were spectacles that were amazing, and now we're kind of, the idea again of seeing an action movie and there's more action, like the fifth Die Hard movie.
Yeah, I was just about to say Die Hard's on its 5th one.
Yeah, and you get to the point where you're just kind of like, this isn't what it was anymore. This is so much action. It's so kind of
over the top.
Yeah,
you can't. Once you're like, he killed Zeus.
You
can't really
go. You can't go
that.
past that. And that was the weird part about Ascension. That was again the second studio from Sony Santa Monica, but that whole weird complex where I feel like for me, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna play some of the God of Wars because I'm gonna get the God of War collection. On my trail to beating Henry Bale. That's what I'm gonna try and do. Play a bunch of those games and get a bunch of trophies from that, which probably will be good for me in a weird way because then I get a little more acclimated to that series. I feel like if they come out with a third-person action game that is completely different than God of War, but kind of, playing with what they already really know what to do, Santa Monica could really propel themselves to being like, holy shit, that's like not like Titanfall in that type of way, but like being that app, being that game where you're like, I need a PS4 because that game's going to be awesome.
I'm going to get a PS4 for this game.
Yeah,
nothing else.
People aren't going to get a PS4 for God of War unless they love God of War.
Yeah, but then they would have got a PS4 anyways.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that they could really do something awesome with a new IP, and still, you know, they have their second team that did an alright job of Ascension. If they really want to go back to God of War, let them do it. Keep the top guys on making something crazy and new. The other one as well in regards to Sony's teams is Guerrilla Games, who make the Killzone games. Killzone Shadowfall coming to PS4, Killzone Mercenary coming to PS Vita. There's a third Killzone team, or not necessarily a Killzone team, but a Guerrilla Games team, and a lot of people thought the Order 1886 was going to be from them because the name leaked a while back. And people were like, who's making this game? It's going to be a Sony game. Who's making it? They still are unannounced on the game too. So Sony Bend, Santa Monica, and Guerrilla Games, those are 3 studios I think that are really, really, really talented, and I'm excited to see. I think that probably 2 out of 3 of those are probably going to be new IPs. You throw in Naughty Dog 2, that's just a lot of really top-class studios that could be making something that's going to make me excited.
Pretty much, we're excited for new IPs.
Yeah, I think that The Last of Us really did that too. It really just kind of pushed it ahead, like, hey, if you give these guys the artistic freedom to make something that they think is really cool,
they could make something awesome.
Yeah, and maybe that's not the story for everybody. We're going to see some success stories. We're going to see some failures, but that is what next-gen console is all about. If you remember Cameo, if you remember, I don't know, there's a bunch of other shitty games.
Resistance.
Yeah.
There was like some other weird stuff.
I don't know, like I think Resistance, it's back and forth between being good and bad. I think because they made 3 games, obviously there was a group of people there that were interested in that title, but at the same time too, yeah, Insomniac now making games for the Xbox One. That is another game, Sunset Overdrive, which I'm tentative on after playing Fuse, but I think that it's kind of the same thing where I'm thinking the first team, and this is when you really need to know, like, I am happy now that I'm at the point where I can kind of decipher, okay, this is the B team making this game, this is the C team making this game. You can get an idea of who's the A squad making these titles, right? And for me, it's funny because when you look at God of War Ascension, that was kind of like, okay, I know that there's another team making a new different PS4 game, so that's already going to turn it down a bit, even more so the fact that it's a God of War game. And then you look at Fuse, and that game was supposed to be really cool, and then it really didn't turn out that well. And you could flip it. You could go half empty or half full on this one. You could say, well, Fuse was shit, and I was never that hot on this and the other thing that they were doing before. Now I'm not interested in Sunset Overdrive. My opinion, though, is the other side of that, where it's like, I loved Ratchet and Clank. The Resistance series is actually a pretty good series. I wasn't a big fan of it overall, but I enjoyed parts of it. I thought it was pretty cool in some points. They showed that they can make a shooter. I think Sunset Overdrive is kind of like, they essentially had Fuse going, and they're like, well, this is probably going to be, this isn't turning out the way we wanted to. Move all the good people over to this one. That's my feeling from it. I feel like they were much working on that game more than what Fuse became, because Fuse, when it came out, was not, it very much looked like a half-baked game in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Fuse was kind of a miss.
Yeah, so
I'm excited for Sunset Overdrive. I'm excited to see more of it. I'm really hoping to see some gameplay.
It's the thing with all these two is I'm tentative on what they are until they're shown. Like, I was showing my kind of excitement for the Order 1886, but I would be even more excited when I get to see what this game is. Because that's going to be the make and break for so many of these titles. It's like, what is this and what is it actually? Because that's a really cool premise for that game. And same thing with Sunset Overdrive. That's a really cool premise for that game. Or at least it looks neat. The art style looks really awesome. What is that going to be in the end?
Weird, and I'm kind of into that. Kind of like weird. It looked... I liked how bright it was.
Yeah.
And that looked cool. And the Order looked pretty cool. Like, I don't know why, but I got a Borderlands vibe from that, just because there's like 4 people, and I'm like, maybe it's co-op.
Yeah, I mean, both cases too kind of showed off that type of style. It's like, look at these crazy guns you're using. Again, completely different worlds, but look at these crazy guns we're using. Look at this weird world we're in. And going back to the Order, I love the idea of where that is. That is a time and a place and kind of a weird setting that we haven't seen in video games. And yes, we don't really know what Sunset Overdrive is, but that seems like an interesting game. With that said, though, let's move on to another story this week that probably the biggest story, I think, and it's to do with Australia and their actual rating system for video games. They switched this up back in, I guess it was January, where they added an adults-only category, and 2 games have officially been labeled that this week. Those are Saints Row 4 and State of Decay, which means these games are not going to actually be shown on shelves, and you're going to have to buy them digitally or through Amazon.
So will you still be able to just get State of Decay the only way you can get State of Decay?
Yeah, technically that is not really that affected from that, but the issue for those games is that instead of them being readily available, they are now going to be games that people are going to have to go out of their way. You know, Timmy goes down to the store and wants to buy Saints Row 4. Well, Timmy probably shouldn't go buy
playing Saints Row 4.
Yeah, but
let's say his parents.
Let's say not Timmy, but Timmy goes down to the store, and he wants to go buy Saints Row 4. And he's a grown adult. He's a grown man, but he don't have a clue about the rating system. He's like, oh, I guess Saints Row 4 isn't out yet. That might be the end of his
Saints Row.
Yeah, he might not even try and find it otherwise. And that's kind of shitty for these games because obviously you want to see them sell. And I think for State of Decay, it was based on actual drug use in that game because in the game you're popping pills to, I forget, maybe
heals you.
Yeah, it heals you, pop pills, makes sense, right? But they have weird kind of restrictions on things like, I don't know what the exact terminology on it is, so I'm not going to delve into it too deep, but, if you're using drugs in a certain way that, immediately moves you up from being, because they only have like a 15 plus category, and then after 15 plus it moves up to this adult only category. It's a bit different than us, because we have a mature rating, which is 17 plus. 17 plus, yeah. And then there's an adult only one after that, which is like, that's the one that they don't have on shelves, but everybody avoids having that rating.
Yeah.
There's only like 23 games that have ever had that rating because when you go that far, you're not going to sell your game. That's pretty much the story. You're on a shelf and you're M-rated. That's, mom can go up to the store with her kid and buy Grand Theft Auto for Jimmy, not Timmy, but, this young kid that's like 10 years old, and they can be like, are you sure you want to buy this game for your kid? There's strippers, you're shooting people, you're,
killing.
You can do mass murder, and you're evil, and
drive drunk.
There's all these things, and she can go, yeah, sure, and then buy the game for him, and he can be like, oh boy, and then go play that game. When it comes to the category for adults only in Australia, that's not available. You can't do that. You gotta be an adult, and at the same time too, that's not going to be on shelves. So, Saints Row 4 being banned, I believe, for anal probing from alien device, or it's like a weapon, I think, or it's part of the story. I don't know.
It's a weapon.
Yeah. So, yeah, there you go. 2 games that have been officially banned. Kind of sucks because I know, people that want to play those games that are going to be disappointed when they find this out. And hopefully, well, I don't think Saints Row is going to do anything for it, but I know for a fact that State of Decay, the team Undead Labs that made that game, have already said that they're working around it. They're going to patch it and make it, Flintstone vitamins or something like that. They're gonna make it something different.
Vitamin C to up your health.
Yeah, like it's same thing for Fallout 3, I believe, where they actually changed the names from like morphine or whatever to different stuff because they wanted to make
packs.
Yeah, they wanted to make sure that people, like it's the fake thing from the future that is health. It doesn't have to be you're picking up this pill or something like that. It's not you're injecting drugs into you. It's like, this is a stimulus for your whatever.
Heals you.
It's not insinuating something horrible in that case. So with that said, hopefully that'll be something that we don't have to really cover that much in the future because, if that starts becoming a big thing that lots of games are being, covered and pushed into that adult-only category, that could be definitely a negative for sales in Australia. Another game, though, kind of going on that whole story of exclusives, Phil Spencer has said that Crackdown is not dead. It's still alive. It's got things coming on for it. And, we kind of talked about maybe it being a reveal at E3. Weren't right on that fact. It was actually shown off in the Xbox One reveal, if you remember that. It was in the
little corner.
Yeah, so, it's one of those games that I think they're trying to hint that something's happened with this. But smartly, probably not ready to show off. Much like we talked about Black Tusk being that type of studio where it's like, maybe you shouldn't have shown anything because
it's not ready.
Yeah, and it's not doing anything for me. You show me 30 seconds of a clip of something I don't even know what the hell is going on and then go, studio I've never heard of. Am I supposed to get excited, or like what's my response to that to be? Like, I'm more excited to know that like Black Tusk is making a AAA game. That sounds cool to me. And Crackdown might be coming out for Xbox One. We don't need to know what that is, but when they show it, it's going to probably look pretty sweet. So, for you, is that I think we talked on this a little bit. Was Crackdown a series you liked?
No, I never actually owned it.
Yeah.
When I go to friends, I'd play their games and stuff, and I played Crackdown for a couple hours, but it was okay. It was never something like that jumped out at me too much. It always kind of felt dated.
And kind of going on that a bit more, Phil Spencer was essentially questioned on it and asked if they accidentally put it up there, and he said it wasn't an accident, it was on purpose that it was there. So kind of acknowledging the fact that it was meant to be on stage, and it's really cool. I think it's an interesting game. Maybe not my cup of tea personally, but something that I could get excited for if it looks pretty cool. So next story is Xbox One will not include a headset, and this is something that we've kind of covered up before. They're saying that when you're playing your video games, you can use your Kinect to talk to people.
I don't want to do that.
That to me is like, no, I will buy a headset that will work. The other really shitty part too, and maybe I'm misinformed on this, but from what I understand, I can't have a headset that works on both Xbox One and PS4 anymore. There was like that, you could buy a really nice headset and it worked on all your consoles. There's supposed to be, I think, certain things that are going to block that now. So, I mean, don't take my word 100% there. I don't know for sure. But if that's true, that's going to hurt. You know, like, I'm already looking at the idea of, like, Turtle Beach has said, oh, we're making this line here. And Astro has just recently said something where they're going to be making PS4 and Xbox One headsets if they can get the licensing for Xbox One. I think PS4 is already on the way. And those are really, nice headsets. That
the Astro,
yes. Yeah. I put Turtle Beach, and I don't really care about Turtle Beach. Astro's like, I saw the headset. They're kind of like, we're gonna do something. I'm like, yeah, I want that $200 headset.
I was big into Call of Duty. I had a pair of Astros, and I'd use those to hear footsteps.
Yeah.
Astros are nice.
Astros are nice, and I mean, I'm excited for that too, where it's like, I want to play my next gen game, in the dark with my headset on and be like totally immersed. That would be really cool. I just don't like the fact that if that is true, that I have to buy 2 different headsets, or, maybe just buy one that only works on one console. So yeah, they're not having a headset. They're saying that they can use the Kinect. And the other weird story that's kind of come out today, not really knowing that sure on this one, but they're saying that maybe your 360 headset will work, which is a really long shot. Like, yeah, that headset you got like 80 years ago, it might work. I don't know.
You can try it.
But yeah, they're actually selling the headset that they've shown off, and you can look that one up. Like, Xbox One headset, probably bring that up. It looks very similar to the 360 headset in design, obviously different coloring.
Doesn't have the little cushy thing.
Yeah, and that is something that they're going to sell separately that they say is a must-have, but they're not putting it in with the console.
Put it in with the console.
Yes, that's not happening for that. And I think we've already covered this before, but the PS4 is not going to have your traditional headset. It's going to have a mono headset.
Isn't it earbuds?
Yeah, so you have an earbud, and then you have a clip that you can speak into, which I don't know like how that would be. I think it's essentially that your TV is still doing your sound. That's just for hearing what people are saying.
Like just like the Xbox headset, where it's all you're hearing is voices.
Yeah. So all I hear is voices in my head. Yeah. I mean, that's something that I think is cool, and I'm excited to see how shitty that sounds. But
well, I don't think it'll be too bad, because if you look at like the iPhone ones are kind of okay.
Yeah.
So
it might not be that terrible, but I think that, like, that's a nice thing to kind of gesture. Maybe like $10, $20 headset out of the box. Like, here, you got it on day one. Here's something for you to use.
Because that's one of the really things that when I would play multiplayer games I really didn't like about the PS3 is no one has a mic.
Yeah.
On Xbox, everyone has a mic because it came with it.
It's even if you just didn't even spend the time to get a really nice one, if you want to talk, there is a mic that is in your closet or in your, something that you use often is there for you to grab. If you're playing with your friends and you're like, oh, let's all play this together, this game that we're all, teaming up together.
You can actually team chat.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we can all go on mics and talk to each other. Versus, like, I've had experiences where, when we play games, we use Skype to talk, which is totally fine. But when I play with other friends, in other cases, I'm not going to ask them to go on to Skype. It turns into a big ordeal. I remember playing Far Cry 3 co-op, where I had 4 friends playing, or, we're all playing together, and I think one of us had a headset, and it was just like, we're like, we can't talk to these other people, what's going on? It was really frustrating, because it was like that lack of communication. It's like, hey, I'm dead over here, and, where's over here? Oh, just under the bridge, I'm, in the water right now. It's like, looking for that person is really hard. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, if it's in the box, you're totally right. It makes it that much more better for just people to actually have that. They can, pop it in their ear, play that Killzone Shadowfall when it comes out. They're good to talk to everybody. And the only thing I'm worried about for PS4, which I think is the trade-off, is hopefully we don't have lots of people that are just like, your mom sucked my cock!
Okay, then.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there will probably be a few people like that.
I mean, to be truly honest, there already are people on there that are doing that, but I'm just like kind of scared of the idea that maybe there's going to be more people on the PS4, and then there's going to be all these people with headsets that, or at least mics that they can talk into, and just be
screaming
cluster
nonsensical things.
I don't know. Like, I know the ecosystem for the Xbox 360 was kind of set up so it's like, that person's stupid, he can go to this stupid underground area where the underground kids play and say dirty things to each other. And I know that's not really that big of a thing anymore, but I remember that being that way at the beginning. It's like, yeah, you got this 5-star rating, and if you're bad, you can like tell people that they suck with 1-star rating, or you can recommend them to go to, I think was it called the Underground, or
no, there was like, you could pick your profile, and there was like family gaming where you play family games with your family.
Yeah.
Then there was like pro gamer where you're like,
I think everybody's on the pro gamer, I think now.
And then there was the kids who were like underground, and that's for cool kids.
Yeah, so there was that one where it was like, people go there so that they can just say dirty things, and people were like,
it's all 13-year-olds.
Yeah, so that's where you go. The cesspool's down there for you, and we'll play up here, at least try and play up here. So yeah, actually that's kind of tying into another thing too. We're really making this news. We're not going to do top of the week. We're already covering all the things I think we wanted to talk about this week in the news. But the thing I wanted to bring up too is I'm very excited for the PS4. I'm very excited for the Xbox One. I've already kind of suggested the fact that PS3 has pretty much been my console of choice this generation after earlier on being interested in the 360 a bit more. The thing I'm really scared about though is Sony's now offering an online service where you have to pay for it. And yes, it's tied into PlayStation Plus, but it's not, if you want to play multiplayer anymore, or now you want to play multiplayer, it's now mandatory that you pay for it. I'm a little bit scared of what their ecosystem is going to be like next generation, because if you look at the Xbox 360, they did a really good job of making a place that felt comfortable to play. You had all the things that you wanted. You had team chat, you had, parties. There's all these different things that, like, to me, as a PS3 gamer, I don't care about, but the reason why I don't care about it is because I don't know what it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've gotten into those things where it's like someone invited me to a party chat where it's like, where are we in Xbox 360? It's like, this is where we get together so we can go play video games. And I'm like, what's that? Like these weird words that should totally be just the normal. And yes, they're gonna have that on the PS4, which is gonna be good. But how are they going to execute it? And how are they going to innovate? And how's the actual loading screens going to be on the actual store? Because right now, the loading screens on the store are abysmal and shitty. Like, there's so many things like that I'm a little bit worried about when it comes to what this is going to be like. And if they're going to actually make people pay, they're going to have to do a really good job of making it good. Because if they don't, then it's like, what are you doing with my money then? There was like, I remember last generation, it's like, well, I'm paying for Xbox Live because I want the premium service that they offer me compared to the PlayStation 3. And Sony offered online, but at the beginning it was very bare bones. Yeah, they've continually made it better, but it's still nowhere near where 360
One of the things
is.
I can't believe is there is no party chat. Like, starting on the Xbox, the party chat, I used it all the time. Play with your friends, you can play different games, still talk to each other. And then when I jumped over to PS3, I was like, hey, party up with me. And he's like, what?
What's that? Like, that's the actual response you get from people is like, they don't know. Like, I can go into the closest thing I can do is when I'm in the XMB, which is the cross media bar, I can go to chat with people and I can start a conversation there. And that's the best I can do.
Yeah. And
that is completely insufficient. And I know that's going to be changed. I know it's going to be better for the PS4. I'm just worried about, like, look at it this way. The 360 has had all this time to kind of perfect what it's doing. And by 360, I mean, the console that Microsoft's made. When they're going into the Xbox One, you better believe that they're going to have it pretty fine-tuned to what people like, but then add a couple extra things on there. Sony, all they can do is really look at the 360 and look at Microsoft and what they did and say, people like that, people didn't like that, people like this. Now, we can't copy them, but let's do our best to make something that people enjoy. Yeah, and when you do that, that's awesome. It's going to make an experience that's better for me, but what if they completely hit the mark or miss the mark? Well, what if they hit the mark? That'd be awesome, but what if they miss the mark on some of those things? Like, that's what scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want PS4 to fail. But I'm worried that next generation is like, I'm getting the exact same thing I got last generation for free, but now I have to pay $50 for this.
Yeah, I definitely think that they're going to offer better services. And, we've already talked about the fact that PlayStation Plus is pretty much, like, I have PlayStation Plus. I've had it for now, like, a year and a half or so. I've really enjoyed it. It's been fantastic. I feel like it's paid for itself. I played so many awesome games on it. That's made the experience worthwhile. But that's been my choice to do that.
Yeah, you don't have to do that online.
And I mean, there's a lot of people defending this change now, and I think there is a little bit there to say, yeah, well, it's about time Sony did it, because it was either that Xbox was going to go the other way and go free, or Sony was going to join the party. And Microsoft making so much damn money from everybody just kind of, like, even me, I probably bought 5 or 6 years worth of memberships for Xbox Live. Yet I barely play. It's just like, so I have it, so I can use it, type of thing.
Because it's really not that expensive. It's $60 you drop for a year.
Yeah, and you think about it that way, it's like, but at the same time too, you really, if you're gaming, it's like, that's just like buying a video game. That's not that big of a deal to me. Yeah. So same thing goes for Sony. I'm not that worried about that. I just want them to make the best experience possible. I really hope they do make an awesome experience through that. Will they do it, though? And will they actually make it strong enough that people that come over aren't like, well, this is shit, That's my only worry when it comes to all that. So Dirt is a series that's been pretty popular, and it's made by Codemasters. Dirt 3, I've been playing actually this week a bit just for fun. And some people didn't like that one as much as Dirt 2. Dirt 2 is kind of like the pinnacle of that series, but there might be a new rally racing game coming from Codemasters, which has got a lot of people excited. Might not necessarily be in your territory, but
would it be a dirt game, or
it sounds like it may be a Colin McRae game. If you remember those, there hasn't really been that many this generation. Dirt is kind of the amalgamation of that series and moved on to rally racing, which I think is actually probably the funnest type of racing to do. You're out. If you play Dirt 3, there's Gymkhana and all this other crap that I actually don't really like that much comparatively, but when you play rally racing, it's the idea of, like, you're in Finland and it's snowy and you're on this track that's freaking huge and everybody goes one at a time, and it's the idea of, like, racing on this really massive track. You're doing this really long race and it's all timed. Like, how far ahead are you?
Time trials.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome. I love that type of style of racing, and I'm actually really excited for this. I don't know what this is going to be, but they have kind of teased at this. Probably by the time this podcast goes up, they're going to announce more, because this was sometime late last night that they actually announced this as a teaser. So we're going to know more soon. It could be, because they've shown off a teaser actual photo here, which we'll look at. You can obviously see it's a rally racing car, so that's definitely a good thing there. But it's a matter of, is it going to be another Dirt game? Is it going to be a Colin McRae game? That's kind of the flipping back and forth between those two, because they also made Dirt Showdown last year as well, which was mediocre, I think. So hopefully they're going to make a good game, and I think that they could definitely. So I'm excited to see what that might be from Codemasters. Like I said, played Dirt 3, liked it a lot. I enjoyed the rally racing, though, more than pretty much anything else that was in that game. So if they're making a rally racing game, sounds cool to me. So yeah, there's that, and we didn't really talk about this that much last week, but there's been some Last of Us stories. Ellen Page on an AMA on Reddit.
Yeah, I was really interested in reading that, because I was on Reddit on my phone. I think I was on break at work or something. and I was like, oh, Ellen Page is doing an AMA. I'm like, I wonder. As soon as I clicked the link, I'm like, I wonder if someone is gonna ask her about The Last of Us. So I scroll down, I see that question, and it was something along the lines of, "Hey, did you know you look like Ellie in The Last of Us? What do you think of this?" And she's like, "I'm not. Since I have my own video game coming out, Beyond Two Souls, I wasn't. It's kind of annoying that they used someone who looked like me."
Yeah, and a lot of this has been blown out of proportion, and I think they've kind of now drawn back on that. Ellen Page is like, I agree, looking forward to Last of Us, or playing Last of Us on her Twitter, and Naughty Dog's like, it's all good, guys, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it wasn't overblown. Like, she pretty much just said, hey, that, like, I'm kind of making my own game, so I don't want people confusing
Which is totally understandable. If you look at the actual original trailer for The Last of Us,
it looks a lot more like her.
They toned her back.
Yeah,
so
it still kind of looks like Ellen Page.
Yeah. They tried to make her look like Ashley Johnson a bit more, because she was the actual voice actor for the game. And you can see it in her face, definitely, comparatively. But yeah, she has that look. It was really funny, too, because I remember Beyond Two Souls and The Last of Us were kind of announced around the same time. It's like 2 Ellen Page games, not knowing who the actual voice actor for
Ellie was.
Yeah, it was like, is she going to do both
also,
voices?
Ellie, Ellen Page.
Yeah, well, it's funny in a lot of regards to that. There's also another story this week, which was in regards to Naughty Dog using a Boston Railroad or underground subway map on their game, and then there was this artist that made that map, and you're like, hey, you used my map without my permission, that pisses me off. And he got really fucking pissed. He was like, this is something that you as a AAA studio should do, and why are you ignoring me as like this person, and I deserve money for this. And they supposedly came to an agreement on that. So yeah, The Last of Us is getting a lot of love out there. It's been selling out. I've looked around a couple of stores just trying to find other stuff lately, and they don't have The Last of Us. People have been coming into our store and talking to us saying, hey, do you have The Last of Us? And we're like, no, don't sell video games. But people are picking that game up, buying that game, loving that game. So that's really good. But yeah, a couple stories there in regards to The Last of Us getting some
love,
hate, love, all that stuff. And last story this week is a sad one. It's Plants vs. Zombie 2. It's About Time. It's the name of the game. Has been delayed. So, it's about time.
Delayed.
Yeah, it's a little funny play on words there, obviously. But not meaning to do that. Now they're in Q3, which will probably mean end of the summer, probably. But it's still going to be released for iOS first. So, if you want to play it on PC or consoles, you have to wait even longer.
Honestly, I can wait for this game.
I don't have an iOS device, so that kind of sucks for me because I really liked the original Plants vs. Zombies, but I assume there's not going to be like 6 months.
No,
it's going to be like a month or something like that. So hopefully not too long.
I mean, I'll play that right when it comes out because I do have an iPhone, so I can just that's perfect for that.
Yeah, and I think that would be really, it'll be an awesome game. Take your time, right? Better than rushing it out there, even though the shitty part about that is that there's not very many games coming out in July, and I was kind of like, sweet, there's actually a game I want to play in July, and doesn't look like it's coming out in July anymore. So yeah, that's the news for this week. Some good stories there, and also just some interesting ones in regards to the Australian rating system there, which I think was probably the most interesting to see how that played out. But new releases this week. We won't cover all of them. We're just going to kind of cover the big releases each week now and try and talk a little bit about those as well. And I guess the biggest one this week, I think biggest this week was probably Company of Heroes 2. That's a pretty huge release, pretty, long time coming for that franchise to get another game. Considered to be the highest rated Metacritic score for a strategy game ever, Company of Heroes originally. And played Company of Heroes quite a bit. Love that. I'm not super excited to play Company of Heroes 2. I'm going to play it eventually. $60 game though, especially right now, I'm trying to save a bit of money.
Get those consoles.
Yeah, and it's gonna get to that point now where I'm fully gonna be playing a whole whack load of games when it comes to the fall, but I'm just gonna hold restraint when it comes to the summer a bit on some of those titles that are a bit meh, because you know what? I mean, I could play them, I could have a subpar time with them, but I know there's gonna be games like Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed, Batman, all the sports games I want to play. Grand Theft Auto, Beyond Two Souls, all the next-gen stuff, and next-gen consoles that are all going to cost money, and I'm going to have to spend that money at some point. So, rather wait But yeah, it's been getting moderate to good reviews. About 8 is kind of seemed like the score zone there for that.
Which, that's not bad.
Yeah, another game though that's pretty big this week, Deadpool. Not as high as reviews as that, but
I've seen some 3s out of 5s and some 2s out of 5s.
Yeah, I think that you have some good things to say about that. You're a fan of the series. I was gonna play that potentially. Dan and you were the ones that were originally set to play that game on our schedule. I just decided in the end of it, like I said, not gonna shell out for that game. Especially I saw the gameplay footage for that, a couple of quick looks on that, and I was just like, I'm not gonna play this actually. And yeah, in the end of it all, you seem to have been having a fun time. We'll talk about that in the games we've been playing this week. But yeah, maybe not for me. And if you're a Deadpool fan, probably for you, but looks a bit bland in regards to the combat there. At least that's my opinion coming from seeing a bit of it there. So those were pretty much the biggest releases this week. Can you think of anything else? Actually, Hotline Miami coming to PS3 and Vita this week, which is cool.
That'd be a cool Vita game, like a good on-the-go game.
Definitely. I kind of want to pick it up for the PlayStation 3 just to play it with a controller, because I'm actually hearing from people that maybe like controllers a bit more that it is actually a bit easier to control. My hands were getting sore. Maybe that's just because I don't play with keyboard that much. I was getting a bit sore when I was playing on the computer. So yeah, I mean, like maybe that would fix that a little bit, and they've added a couple things there too. So support those guys. Hotline Miami 2 coming out sometime in the future, which will be neat to see that. But I already played through Hotline Miami this year. That was one of my games that I had on the schedule to play through. So I did that. Maybe I'll play it again. But a good game, and I think it definitely, like you said, there's gonna be some cool games like that just on the Vita. I think it would be pretty awesome. So
I almost bought a Vita the other day.
I think we're on the same page, because I am really fighting the urge to right now. I have no interest in buying a Wii U at the moment, and I think that, like we talked about,
bought one of those too. I was like, I think I was in a Walmart, and I was like, I was looking for Mass Effect 2.
Yeah.
Because I've pretty much gone everywhere except for like an EB Games, which will have it for sure, but I just don't know why I haven't gone there. So I walk in, and I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't here. Let's see what they got. I'm like, they got a Wii U here that comes with Zombie U. I liked Zombie U. No. And I was just like, nope, not gonna do it. And then I'm like, there's a Vita here. I'm gonna be getting a PS4. This will work pretty well with my PS4. Like this will.
Yeah, I get the connectivity there.
And I was closer with that one. I was like, I stood there for like a good 5 minutes. Like, should I do this? Yeah. I'm gonna wait on this for a little bit. Not just gonna drop that money on the spot.
My thing is, I'm not Wii U 2014 later on. Probably that's when it's gonna happen. Hopefully after a price drop. But
when Smash Bros comes out.
Yeah. Vita though, I'm getting closer and closer to. People have said some really good things about Tearaway, and I kind of feel like when September comes around, I want to play that game when it comes out.
The only thing is, I feel like there's gonna be another Vita coming out, like a Vita 2.
I don't think so. I would make a bet, like a money bet on them not doing that.
Because I've heard the battery life on the Vita isn't great.
I own a Vita actually.
Really?
Yes.
I've heard it's like 6 hours.
I bought a Vita launch day. Yeah.
How, you still got it?
No. Well, I'm talking about buying a Vita.
That speaks to the.
Well, here's the thing. I had these wonderful memories of being a kid playing my Game Boys
handhelds, yeah.
Yeah. And I never, like, after, I think the DS, I don't even know if the DS was my last one. I know, like, I remember having a Game Boy Advance, DS something. I think I had the original DS, and that was the last one I ever had, because they had the DSi, DS Lite, XL,
yeah. All those.
Yeah, so they did a lot of those. I think I had the original one. I had great times playing those games on those consoles. Like I said, I had a Game Boy. My original, like, I think that was my first ever console I had was a Game Boy, not an N64. Then I got a Game Boy Color after that. That was actually crazy for me that, I remember that. And playing, games that were colorless, which is crazy.
Or one color per screen.
Yeah.
Color.
That was really, it was fun. I had a lot of fun with that console. But here's the thing. I bought Animal Crossing for 3DS, played some of my brother's games because he's got a 3DS from time to time. Never thought about buying one for myself because we got that there. Vita, I was like, sweet, this is a new console. It's been years since a new console's come out. This is before the Wii U came out. That was another story. I was going to buy one on launch, a Wii U at launch, but I chickened out because I was going to do it for my YouTube channel. I was going to do unboxing and play a bunch of games for that. Yeah, and then it turned out people were doing unboxings like 3 weeks before, and I'm like, nah, I don't, games, I weighed the things on that, and I'm just like, I'm going to focus on my other stuff. So that's how I stayed away from that. Vita was a different story, though. I bought a Vita, and I had Escape Plan, and I had Super Stardust HD. I had Little Deviants. I didn't open the Little Deviants, and I had Hot Shots Golf, which I didn't open either. And it was one of those things where I played the 2 games that were on the hard drive. My issue was that I didn't feel comfortable carrying it around with me. Like, I couldn't fit it in my pocket. I wasn't going to put it in my backpack. Like, it's a nice console. It feels... You don't want to get it scratched up. The thing is, this console is awesome. Like, the dual sticks, everything, it feels great. The screen, that is a really nice screen. Like, an OLED screen that's 5 inches. Looks amazing. Makes games look really good. Like, better than your TV could. Better than my TV could.
Better than my TV could.
But the problem I had was I was playing Escape Plan. I was playing Super Stardust. I was having fun playing these games. 2 really good Vita games there. But my problem with them was the fact that I was playing them on the couch.
I was just going to say, I don't really play portable games anymore. I play them at my house.
Yeah, and I had issues with the fact that I was not... I had this grand idea of playing my Vita on the go. I tried. I got motion sickness when I was in the car playing Super Stardust. I couldn't do it. And, I mean, maybe I could get adjusted to that, but it was kind of like the point where I got to... Where I was like, I was picking this up to play these games at home, and then I was feeling like when I was on my couch that I was like, should be playing my PS3 or my 360.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. Like, I have a 3DS. I bought one because I got it on Price Drop.
Yeah.
That was big. And I got Zelda Ocarina of Time, and I played that game a lot. I beat it, and then I was on vacation when I did that too. So that's really all I had with me.
Yeah.
And then when I got home, put it down. I did not pick that game up till Luigi Secret Mansion came out. Played that for like 2 hours, put it down.
And it's kind of like the spot we're in now too, right? Where it's like, again, we're not kidding ourselves with this. We're doing this for fun. We're having a fun time doing it. But we're making, the podcast is one of those things we can kind of use to push ourselves to play new stuff and get us interested in things that maybe would have been a little bit more just kind of apprehensive of doing.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity for us to talk about games with friends. It's an opportunity for us to talk to you guys. And it's really cool actually for us because then I feel like, for me, there's certain points where I play games that I really...
Normally wouldn't have.
Yeah, and I appreciate them. I really do. And it stops me from being that 12-game guy, every... that type of cycle because, usually that person loves video games, but there's just so many times that I would go to the store, I would be like, I'm going to buy this game, and then, didn't buy the game. There'd be a lot of points like that where that was me with this generation of consoles for a couple of years after I started making enough money where I was like, I can go and buy games when I want. I still wouldn't go and buy games because there'd just be those too many times. And I think Mike is a better example of that. I have a friend Spencer who might come on the show in some time in the future, but I buy games on day one now. And for example, Spencer, our friend, he started playing The Last of Us, but waited like a week and a half to do it. And I'm now at the point where it's like I gotta play that right away so I can talk about it and have an opinion on it, rather than like that back and forth tug of war between wanting something or not.
I'll wait to see what everyone says about it.
Yeah. So the thing for me is that there are actually a lot of really cool games for the Vita, and I'm not saying that out of my ass or anything. There's some really awesome stuff. And the really cool part too is you can play games like Hotline Miami, and you can buy them, and a lot of them are actually like sound shapes. You buy once, you got it twice.
Yeah.
PlayStation Plus right now, I've got... Well, essentially, if I buy a Vita, this is the thing that's enticing me to buy a Vita. And I think there's a couple other games that wasn't really, like, I didn't save them because they're on there, and I haven't gone to that point yet. But I have downloaded on my PS3 Uncharted Golden Abyss, Gravity Rush, Sound Shapes, Wipeout. Those are 4 games that are, like, legitimate big titles that I can immediately download right to my Vita when I get it.
You got them for free.
Yeah. A couple of them are from... having the PlayStation Plus, and there's constantly new stuff coming up there, And then there's other just interesting things that are coming out too. Like, for example, you might like Soul Sacrifice or something like that.
Yeah, that's one of the games where when that was coming out, I was like, I might get a Vita.
Yeah, so there's games like that. And the one for me, so Tearaway's kind of becoming the game where people are saying really awesome things about it. I'm like, it's starting to get that point again where, like, I just kind of want to have this console here so that I can just play it. It won't be used all the time. But then my issue I'm having is that I have this looming, like, November where it's done.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Consoles are coming.
Yeah, it's like, can I just... Like, I could have totally justified buying a console in February. But now it's hard to justify buying a Vita now, knowing that I'm probably going to dish out maybe one or two, for one or two consoles. Spend maybe even $1,000 on consoles this fall. Yeah, like, I think we both honestly do want to get a Vita. And maybe that might be their struggle with that too, is because they had initial, sales on the Vita and then kind of just dwindled away. And now we're at the point where I think there are people that want to buy a Vita, but there's that looming cloud coming in the fall where it's like I said, I'm saving money on not buying games because I'm thinking to myself, if I don't buy Deadpool here, like, I think that's actually going to become the thing that I'm going to do. This sounds super stupid, but I didn't buy Deadpool, and I could have bought Deadpool, and I will literally make a note saying that's $45 that I just saved, or whatever. I think it was like $49.99, so like $55, and I'll keep doing that till I get to like the $499 mark for the Xbox One, and I can be like, see, I saved $500. Now I can buy both consoles at launch, and just make the stupidest argument for that ever. But that same idea of just like buying something or not buying something and that type of aspect just to justify something to yourself, because even if we are buying lots of games, there is always a point where you're like, this has just got crazy stupid right now. And let's jump into what we've been playing this week. I think this is actually tying into this topic perfectly, because you know what, I made actual list actually of games that I've wanted to pick up and play. And we've already done the thing that we did a couple months ago, I think it was, where we talked about the games that we wanted to experience before this generation was over. And I'm still sticking to that list. I'm still going to probably play all those games, kind of, that not any money on the line, but it's a little bit of a bet, see how we can actually accomplish that. But I've made a list separately of that, just like, yeah, I want to play these games. And putting my foot down, saying to myself, nope, you're not playing those games. You've got like 10 games in your closet that if you don't want to buy a new game, you can play these games. Yeah. And the one that I literally pretty much forced myself to play was Sly Cooper 3, Honor Among Thieves. This is a cool game, an HD collection, or part of the HD collection that came out, I guess it's 2 years ago now. I played the first two Sly Cooper games, platinum both of them, had a fun time playing them, but I couldn't play any more Sly Cooper after that.
Yeah, you kind of Sly Coopered yourself out.
Yeah, that was like 25 hours Sly Cooper. That's enough for me. And during that summer, I bought that collection. I bought the Jak and Daxter collection. I played through all three of those games, one after another, and got all three platinums in those. I played Shadow Colossus and Eco, which is another collection, and by that point, I had HD collection myself out. There was other cool HD collections that were coming out, like Ratchet and Clank, which another game that I'm planning to buy the collection for, and God of War collection, the God of War Saga or whatever it's called, the one that has all the ones, and there's the Metal Gear Solid Legacy collection coming out in July, I think, where those look like just kind of cool things to add to my collection of video games. Yeah. And say, hey, if I want to play Ratchet and Clank, there's all three of them and they're HD now. That sounds cool to me. So I did it. I finally played Sly Cooper 3, and it's really hard to explain this to you guys. I don't know if you have your own experiences like this, but this game has been staring at me for a long time. It's actually really bad. Like, I've constantly said to myself, I should start playing this game. And then I'd always find an excuse. I got 2 hours. Why don't I play this game? I just play FIFA instead. I got 2 hours. Why don't I play this game? I'll just buy a new game instead. I will just play another game. There was always an excuse. And I finally got to the point where I'm like, there's two games that I really need to play. Those are Enslaved, Odyssey of the West, which is the game by Team Ninja, or Ninja Theory, I believe the name is. Yeah. And they made Heavenly Sword, made the new DMC Devil May Cry. And I wanted to play their middle game there. Yeah. And I'm going to do that now. But you must beat Sly first, and then once you beat Sly, you can play that. Yeah. I also want to play Sly 4 Thieves in time, but after playing Sly 3, I I'm so slide out right now. I cannot even explain.
I was considering getting Sly 4 because I really love. I played the Sly games when they came out originally.
Yeah.
And actually, I never played Sly 3. I played the demo of Sly 3 that was hidden in Tony Hawk's American Wasteland.
Nice choice.
Yeah, and so I was like, maybe I should play Sly 4. So I
think it's a good game. It's actually supposed to be a good game. It's like $39. It was actually launched at a cheaper price, and solid reviews over it. But the problem is, I just went through a Sly adventure.
Yeah.
Same thing goes for a situation like Metal Gear Solid 5. I'm excited to play that game, and I want to kind of dip back into the history of Metal Gear Solid. I played Metal Gear Solid 4. I think I dabbled in some of the PS2 Metal Gear Solids, but the thing is, I haven't played them, and I don't... It's really hard to know what's going on in Metal Gear Solid as is. That series is convoluted and crazy in its actual plot lines that don't make sense. And, well, they do make sense if you really want them to.
You gotta really... It's like there should be a course on this.
Yes.
I'm surprised there isn't.
7...
There's some weird courses out there.
Yeah, what is Metal Gear Solid? I should start that course, just at Camosin.
Metal Gear Solid 101.
Yeah, but I have to play all the games first, which is probably not going to happen.
And understand it.
Yeah. Those are two things that will likely not happen, even if I do one or the other. And the thing with that is that there's 7 of those games, the Legacy Collection. I'm talking about buying that one. But I probably won't play all 7 of those games, because if I play all 7 of those games, I will not want to play
Metal Gear Solid 5.
No, and like I want to play Sly 4. I could have probably... I'm actually happy because there's some interesting things that happen at the end of Sly 3 that lead up to what's going on in Sly 4. Bentley says, well, we're going to find out more about the Thievius Raccoonus because I'm making a time machine, aka Sly 4 Thieves in Time, right? I can leave it now. I am now of sound mind and peace. I have beaten Sly 3. I've beaten the Sly collection. I can put that in my closet where all my other games are. Never, ever have to look at it again if I don't want to. And move on to Enslaved, which what I'll be playing next week. But that's all I've played this week. Sly 3 is a cool game. Just drags on. And maybe that's just because I played Sly 1 and 2 last year and I felt like I had enough at that point. But that game really drags. And after playing The Last of Us, I know it's supposed to be tongue-in-cheek a lot of times, but dear God, the actual narration in that game and like the actual back-and-forth banter sometimes was just like, holy crap, just shut up, no, don't even say that. Other times it's cute and funny, but then, I had my podcast in half the time because I was just like, I'm getting through this game.
Yeah.
So that was my experience this week, very limited in that, but I'm going to be checking out some cooler games next week, like Enslaved, so I hope to have a little bit more in front of that. But you've been playing Deadpool.
Yeah, I got Deadpool on Tuesday. I didn't get to play too much of it because I had food poisoning, which that sucked. But I played for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
And that game is, I like it, but there is problems with it. The combat's not great. If you try and shoot your way through that game, you will hate it. The shooting's pretty, it's boring. Hold left trigger, fire right trigger, it takes a couple bullets to kill them. Boring. The melee combat's not bad. It's kind of funny because it's violent.
Is it repetitive, though? Because it looks like there's so many of the same enemy. I know it's supposed to be clones because it's Sinister you're fighting, right?
Yeah, it is. It looks like it's probably going to get repetitive. I'm still enjoying it right now, but I'm not, having super a lot of fun with it. The cutscenes are funny. One of the touches I really, really love about this game is when you come across a comic book hero, even some of the minor ones, well, the cutscene's going and a little prompt will come out that'll be like, press A to learn more about this character. So for Sinister, because I bet a lot of people don't know who Sinister is. Press A, Deadpool gives you his little take on Sinister and his little take on Wolverine, things like that. And I really like that stuff. I hope there's more of those because I've only come across 4 of them. You start off in Deadpool's apartment, which I liked because there was this, you go make 1,000 pancakes. And that's he does that in the comic books. He makes 10,000 pancakes one day. And they have all those little things, and... I like the idea of the game, the premise of the game, because it's about Deadpool wanting to make a video game. Yeah, it's funny. And it's kind of funny because he didn't read the own script to his video game, so he doesn't know what's happening while he's doing it. Yeah. And because he has voices in his head, they're like, maybe you should have read the scripts. And he's just like, nah. So he continues going on. It's done that a few times where the voice has gone, maybe you should have read the script. And he just goes, no, that's boring. It's probably the 3rd time I've seen that happen in 3 hours. So that seems like it's going to get repetitive.
The Nolan North, him phoning him.
That was kind of funny. Because he like phones Nolan North, and then when the phone call's done, he doesn't hang up till you press like B to hang up. So he's just like kind of on the phone silently, and Nolan North has already hung up, and he's like, "Fuck you, Nolan," and hangs up. Which I was like, "That's funny."
Yeah. It's hit and miss humor, right?
Yeah, it's really hit and miss.
Is it like now? This is I don't know. I feel like I need to ask this because I might play this game. Like this sounds, you might be offended by this, but this feels like my June Lollipop Chainsaw of last year.
Yeah, I can see why.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's a game that now, like I actually should have probably picked it up a little while ago, but I wanted to play that game just to see what it was and like pay $20 and be like, cool. I think that's where I'm at with Deadpool. If I want to play it next year, I might play it. If you come out of that thinking like for whatever reason that there needs to be, you know, like I should go check it out, then maybe I will play it. But you know, like there's not. I don't think there's gonna be any incentive to really check that out.
Yeah, it's and if you don't know a lot about Deadpool or don't know a lot about Marvel, it's gonna be not confusing, but it's gonna be like
there's a lot of inside humor, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be like they're leaving you out of an inside joke, and that's and 50% of that game is the inside jokes. You're missing out on a huge portion. I would suggest if you know even just a little bit about Deadpool that you should probably pick it up if you like it. And if you don't know too much about Deadpool, I would suggest maybe, you know, skipping it. Wait for a big price drop.
Yeah, and like I said, that's probably what's going to happen. But the thing for me is that might never really come because next-gen consoles are around the corner. And
you're not going to go back to your 360 or PS3.
Yeah, like I think there's going to be a point where that just kind of gets lost in the dust. So like you said, if you really enjoy the game, maybe then that's the point where you go, okay, I'll check this out quickly. Is that all you've been playing this week, though? Well, I guess Animal Crossing.
I played Animal Crossing, which I'm still enjoying.
It hasn't hit that point yet.
Where I don't enjoy it?
Yes.
No, I still love it.
Have you got... Because I'm supposed to... I understand that there's, like, ribbons in that game or something like that, where it's, like, not trophies, but, like, it tells you, like, how long you've been playing or you did something cool.
No, I haven't gotten any of those. I probably haven't sunk too much time into the game. I'm just, like... 10 minutes a day at least.
Okay.
To play it.
So you're getting your fill of it, not over, you know, just not going too deep onto it.
Yeah, I have the second house. I have all the like fishing rod. I have all those.
I'm in a tent. I literally have not picked up the game since the day I bought it.
Yeah.
And I'm actually happy. Like I've already said, I have now passed it on to the younger generation in my family, and I'm happy that I'm not addicted to that game. Maybe it'll suck over the next couple months because there's not that many great games coming out. But you know what? I've got a lot of backlog. Borderlands 2, Singularity, Darksiders 2, or The Darkness 2, I think it was. Just a bunch of games that are like kind of meh. I'm going to try and play through Dishonored. There's Bastion, a bunch of other stuff. And there's going to be Steam sales coming up soon, too.
Steam summer sales and summer arcade and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be things I'm going to buy. So I don't need to be that entrenched in that game.
I'm enjoying it. I pretty much, like, if I'm watching a TV show, I'll pull it out and play that. Or whenever I need to kill, like, 10 minutes. Like, say I'm waiting to pick someone up or something.
Yeah.
Pull it out.
Just play some Animal Crossing.
Yeah, throw it in my backpack in the morning, and I have that with me if I need it.
I don't know what it is either. I feel like because you can close the 3DS, it's a little bit more portable.
Yeah, like that protects it. You don't need a screen protector for that because it is protected.
Like the sticks on the Vita, that's the thing I was talking about the Vita, and being portable, that's the only thing that gets me a little bit down on that is because there's sticks on there that I feel like I could break or hurt, damage them in some way. And there's that beautiful screen that you could just... Oh, I fell.
If I was going to get a Vita, I'd definitely have to get one of those nice carrying cases.
Yeah, and I had one of those carrying cases when it came with the launch of it, but I was just like, that was a big thing to carry around, and a bit much there. But yeah, I guess that's what we've been playing this week. And
we also played a little bit of The Last of Us multiplayer.
Yes, we've been jumping back into that. We haven't really talked about Last of Us multiplayer that much.
No, we haven't.
You jump off on that because you've been playing it.
It reminds me of Gears of War in the fact that it's teams of 4. You go out, when you're dead, you're dead. If you get shot, you pretty much go down on one knee, and you can like crawl around and be picked up. And it can make for some pretty fun games, but they're slow.
I feel like it's intense.
Yeah, it is.
It's not. It's slow, but it's quick. It's not like you play through that, and you're not stuck playing a 30-minute match or something like that.
No, the matches are. It's like longer than a Call of Duty match. I'd say they're like 15 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
But it's not like League of Legends where you have to dedicate an hour to this.
Survivor mode is really sweet in that game, though. Like, that is what makes that mode really awesome, actually. And I think that's something that video games should look at and say, hey, Last of Us, it's not going to have multiplayer that's played for forever. But there's a community there now. People are going to play that game for some time. And it's fun. Yeah. It's different. It's not what you expect. It plays with what the game is and puts in the multiplayer. You feel like you're playing the game.
Yeah, you feel panicking. Like when you find, you still have to scavenge for things. You have almost no ammo. If you take pop shots at every guy you see, you're wasting your ammo.
You're very limited in what you have. You can collect things. You can supply things. And the meta game that you have going on the whole time where it's every game is a day. Yeah. And you're trying to keep your people alive. You got survivors. You need to get supplies each game, and if you don't do good in the game, you're not going to get enough supplies.
People might get sick, hungry. Like it's kind of like Papers, Please in that.
Yes, so it's very solid in that way. I think it creates a very great atmosphere for playing it, and it's fun. It's really good too. It plays the gameplay that you already enjoyed from The Last of Us, puts in a multiplayer environment. It's intense. It feels like the actual single-player campaign, except you're playing in this different environment. You're playing as the Hunters or the Fireflies, and it works.
One thing I have to say about the game is I'm just going to use Call of Duty as a comparison because that's kind of the everyman of multiplayer games. In Call of Duty, if you want to play by yourself, you can totally do that. You can play the objective by yourself. It's not that big a deal because everyone dies fairly quickly. In The Last of Us, playing by yourself with no team coordination is really hard to do.
When we've played, I've enjoyed that game about double the amount.
Yeah. Like when we're playing, when we can organize things, like we'll there's that one map where we sit up on that upstairs, and I'm like, I'll watch that door, you watch that door, and you can look out the window, and we can do that.
And it creates this kind of cool environment where The Last of Us doesn't give you this option, but it's like you and your friend are in this post-apocalypse together, and you're surviving. Yeah. Like, if we were out there, the world gone to shit, we would work as a team. Like, oh shit, I heard people outside, they're coming in here.
Come up the stairs, get behind here, you get there. They'll see you.
We use our video game knowledge and be like, yeah.
They'll see you, but when they see you, I'll sneak up and shift them.
Yeah.
Things like that. And that's really fun. I've only played about 3 games myself, so it could be better. And I really don't like the other mode.
Yeah, the other mode is essentially the same thing, except you have 20 reinforcements. They come in every 15 seconds, I believe. So if you die, you can actually, gang up on that one person that's left. But as soon as those, respawn time comes around, those people come back in. Whoever's been out gets allocated from the actual 20 extra lives you have. So you have 24 each. It's exactly the same thing, except it doesn't have the intensity. Yeah. And I feel like people can be idiots in that mode.
And they waste their lives and things like that.
The other mode, when you are in that survivor type of aspect, it just makes it that much more intense. Yes. And it's really awesome. I'd love to play it. And it's one of those things that I'm excited, because I know other people are going to slowly play this game, slowly, get to the point where people want to play a bit of multiplayer. I'll just keep jumping back in because it's fun to play with friends, it's fun to experience, and it's a fun time. And they did it right. That game, Last of Us, is all around. They didn't even make a half-ass multiplayer.
They could have not had multiplayer, but they put it in, and it's serviceable.
Yeah, and people are going to keep that game simply for that too, which is kind of cool. So yeah, multiplayer Last of Us is another plus to that game. Yeah. Like we said, last spoiler cast we did for it, 10 out of 10s from me, Mike, and Gage as well. So we love that game. And segue, we're going to be talking about it on our Games of the Generation podcast, which is still undated, but it's going to take place instead of a regular podcast, maybe 2 weeks from now, maybe 3 weeks from now. It's going to be our culmination, our big event essentially for Checkpoint Achieved. We haven't really done anything like this yet, and it just turns out that we started up this podcast about 23 episodes before we're moving on to next gen console, which is really awesome time to start a podcast. But you know what? We decided to do it in July because July is the lull.
It's the slowest time for games. Nothing's really coming out.
Yeah, and there's games like Splinter Cell Blacklist coming out. There's games like Saints Row 4, and I don't think we can make arguments.
Not probably gonna make
Beyond Two Souls if
GTA
you really
5.
want. Yeah, those are the 2 titles, and we consider games like Watch Dogs, Call of Duty Ghosts, Battlefield 4. Anything that's split gen,
you put it up.
Yeah, you put it up. Because you look at games that were on the last generation of consoles when they came out and were split, you don't consider that game as a last generation console game. You consider that as a current generation console game. So, yeah, with that said, we're going to be doing Games of the Generation podcast. So, get excited for that. We don't have an exact date for it yet. Probably next week we'll have a time and date for when it's going to be coming out. We'll make a big deal about it. How it's going to work is that it's going to be me, Gage, Dan, and Mike on the show. Probably not anybody else. We're working on our actual lineup because we want to have the core people that are normally on the show. And how it's going to work is we're each going to have our top 10 list. We're going to have our personal top 10s of what we thought were the best games of the generation. But we're not sharing it. We're not telling each other. We're not going to say what those are. There'll be special features up on our YouTube site, Bryden, for that where I'll be editing together videos where if that certain member wants to, they can, have their own, Gage's top 10 of the generation or something like that. I'll do my own top 10. But the big deal is going to be the culmination. And how it's going to work, we're all going to have top 10s. We're not going to know what they are. We're going to take in those results. We're going to randomly mix them together. We're going to have essentially 40 games. Some of them might be duplicates, assuming that, Last of Us going to be there a couple times, Red Dead Redemption, Mass Effect, there's games like that Fallout 3, another one too. I'm not going to name all of them, but you know what I mean. There's going to be a couple games on there that are going to have a couple on everybody's list. But the idea is that we're not going to know who's coming from where. We're going to have an idea. But then we're going to take these games, put the ones that got the couple, extra votes for them at the very top. The rest of them, though, we're going to take turns eliminating them. Really figure out what our top 10 is. It's going to get heated. It's going to be a long episode. We might even break it up to a couple parts too, because I assume that when we do this, it's going to be like a 4-hour thing or 3-hour thing where we take a couple breaks, sit down, really hammer this out. It should be fun. But the question for you guys this week, because we have not asked a question. Like I've been saying that we're going to do a question, but I want to actually ask one out and get you guys thinking. You can email us at checkpointachieved with any questions if you want. But specifically for this week, what is your game of the generation? Or if you can make a top 5 or top 10 list, what would those games be? You can leave those at checkpointachieved@gmail.com. I'm going to be making a similar video for Question of the Week on YouTube at Brydo as well, BRYDO0. And I'll be asking that there too. So if you want to answer that, you can answer that there as well. We'll get your thoughts and opinions. Talk about that next week. Kind of get it as, the ramp up to what we're actually doing on our own Game of the Generation podcast, which will be coming middle of July, roughly.
Yep.
Until then, though, thank you guys for listening in. And please leave lovely reviews on our iTunes because we're continuing to try and get this podcast out to as many people as possible. Really helps when we get the 5-star ratings. Really helps if you give us reviews. And if you actually write a review, we'll read it out on the podcast as well. And until next time, thank you for listening. I've been Bryden, Keks, Gage, Paul. Follow me on Twitter at Brydo, BRYDO0.
Follow me on Twitter at Gage24Paul.
24/7 partier he is. That is it for this week, guys. We'll see you around next week.